Hey guys, Chaps here, and if you're like most people, Chromebooks have piqued your interest lately. Maybe you need a new laptop for school, maybe you want a personal computer, or perhaps you're like me, and you're just looking for an extra device to have around the house. Well, today I'll be taking a look at various Chromebooks on the semi-premium side to help people decide what is most worth it this holiday season. Now I'll start by saying Chromebooks aren't for everyone, and there's not really one Chromebook that best fits everyone. But once I decided that Chromebooks can in fact suit my needs, here's the process that I took to narrow down my options. First, I specified my user cases. I have a laptop for work, but that's just for work. I have a gaming PC. It may be 5 or 6 years old, but it's still running strong. My wife has a MacBook Pro, but my personal laptop isn't running all too well anymore. It's my old college laptop. So this new device that I'm looking for is primarily to supplement my desktop and her MacBook. We want something that we can keep downstairs or take on vacation with us. It will primarily be used for surfing the web or watching YouTube videos. I'll certainly want to use Twitter on it and probably do some simple photo editing. And on vacation we may use it to watch Netflix. Oh, and I'll probably want to do some video scripting or brainstorming to come up with some basic write-ups or spreadsheets. We don't really need anything super powerful for this, so I went in expecting to find about a $200 device that could suit my needs. Eventually I decided that I wanted a 128GB solid-state drive. This would allow plenty of space for apps and movies. That really bumped the price up though, so in hindsight we probably would have been fine with 64 gigs plus the SD card slot, but oh well. Next, I thought about RAM. Again, I'd be fine with something pretty cheap around that 4 gigs of RAM point that most beginner Chromebooks are like. But my wife is one of those people who likes to constantly open hundreds of tabs in Chrome. This, combined with a few other things, convinced me that 8 gigs of RAM would be our minimum. We don't really care too much about having a touchscreen. An HDMI port would be ideal, but that's not a deal breaker, and I'm kind of a stickler for build quality. Oh, and we need something that can stand freely on our lap. I don't want something like the Duet that relies on a kickstand. As the last filter, I'm going to throw price in there. We put a soft limit at $500. I'm willing to go over that slightly, and in compiling my initial list, I'm also going to include things that are higher than that, with the assumption that some will go on sale. So with all of that said, my list narrowed down to the Acer Spin 713, which has been highly recommended on Reddit, and that's both the 20 and the 2021 models. The Asus CX5, the 536EA from Best Buy. The Asus CX5400, which is hard to find in stores. The HP X360 14C. The Samsung Galaxy Chromebook, and that's both the original and the Chromebook 2. The Lenovo Flex 5 and the Flex 5i. And lastly, the Lenovo C13 Yoga. Oh, and I also included a normal laptop, as I haven't ruled that out yet. Through employee discounts, I can get a decent Windows laptop with 8 gigs of RAM and an 11th gen i3 processor, 256GB solid-state drive for right around $300. It's pretty tempting, but I'm willing to spend a little bit more depending on what I can get out of a Chromebook in that price range. So yeah, that's 10 Chromebooks and a Windows laptop. Let's narrow things down a little bit. The first thing that I did was pick up the Asus 536EA from Best Buy for $399 when it was on sale. It was the first Chromebook I had ever used, and it helped me decide on two things. One, are Chromebooks really the right choice for me? And two, given some of these features, is it really worth the extra $100 that I have to spend over a Windows laptop? To me, the answer to both was yes. So say bye-bye to the Windows laptop. I'm personally not at a point where I could completely get rid of Windows, but being I have my desktop as my primary Windows device, I'm fine with going for a Chromebook for this supplemental device. So while the Asus was able to answer those two questions for me, unfortunately it just wasn't the right fit. It was a bit large, I didn't like the trackpad, and the offset keyboard was hard to get used to, especially when using it in my lap. It's still a contender, depending on what prices I can find for the other devices, but it's not looking likely for the CX5. I didn't need to wait long, and I found the HP X360 14C on sale. I don't recall how much it was for new, but I found it in open box excellent condition for $428. Getting this device answered even more questions for me. To start with, it opened my mind to open box items, which I had never purchased before. This arrived in basically new condition, and if it had shipped in the original box, I would have assumed it was new. This saves a ton of money, and I'll keep my eye out for this option in the future. For the notebook itself, I liked the size, the trackpad, especially the build quality, the speakers, the keyboard, and basically everything I liked better than the Asus. It was a clear winner to me, and that put the CX5 on the chopping block. The HP Chromebook doesn't have an HDMI port, and the USB-A port is kinda strange, and the screen has a slight yellow tint to it, but I was ready to accept it because I really liked that laptop. The only other holdback, and it was actually kind of a big one, was how strong the magnet was keeping it shut. I eventually learned to open it from the corners, as it's almost impossible to open from the middle. but my wife really struggled when opening it. She'd eventually figure it out, so it wasn't a deal breaker, but it also wasn't that perfect fit that I was looking for. Another learning from the HP was that we're open to not having an HDMI port. Though it's not ideal, we could live with just using a USB-C port for displays. This actually opened us up to looking at the Galaxy Chromebooks, which weren't previously on our list. Unfortunately, there's nothing in that Goldilocks zone for us. The original one is great in terms of specs, but the battery life is just a killer. The Chromebook 2, on the other hand, has the battery life, but it just doesn't quite make the cut when we look at the specs. I wish there was something that could meet us in the middle, but without that option, the Galaxy Chromebooks also get the axe. It was at this point where things really took off. The Spin 713, both the 2W and the 3W, have been highly recommended, and it was here that I found the 713 2W on sale, refurbished, for $420, plus 5% off, so we grabbed it for around $400. We'll hit on that one more in a minute here. But while waiting for that to arrive, I discovered the Asus CX5400. It appears to have taken the CX5 that we had, it fixed all of the issues I had with it, and then improved on other areas as well. It seemed pretty perfect. Unfortunately, it's listed for $725, and I haven't seen it drop below $700 yet. So yeah, that's still way above our $500 price range. I also discovered the Lenovo Flex 5. Being my dad was an IBMer, I grew up with ThinkPads, and I really like Lenovo laptops for the most part. Sadly, the Flex 5 was primarily shipping with 4GB of RAM, and I could find the 5i with 8GB of RAM, but it just wasn't priced right for what you got with that laptop. They seemed like nice devices, but either the specs were too low on the Flex 5, or the price was too high for what you got on the Flex 5i. This led me to discovering the Lenovo C13 Yoga. Nice build, really nice trackpad, stylus, fingerprint reader, nice specs, and I could get all of this with an employee discount at a pretty reasonable price. Oh, and yeah, I'm one of those people who actually like using that little red nub as a mouse. Unfortunately, this is only shipping with AMD processors. They're strong, but they lose a significant amount of processing power when they're unplugged and running on battery. Being I primarily plan to use this on battery, that's kind of a deal breaker for me. It's unfortunate, as this really seemed to be a solid package, and they do ship the Windows version of this laptop with Intel processors, but sadly, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. So what do we have left? Well, there's the HP X360. Not perfect, but a clear winner so far. The Asus CX5400, but again, I'm just going to finally cross this one off the list as that price is not coming down. We have the Acer Spin 713 2W, which is on the way, and the Acer Spin 713 3W, which is still out of our price range. Okay, so the 713 2W has arrived, and I'm not super impressed. On paper it's fantastic, but holding it just wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't living up to the hype. It was at the point where I was struggling to decide between the X360 and the 713 2W. The 713 2W wins on all of the internals and the screen, but the X360 was a clear winner for build quality, speakers, portability, and I guess the fingerprint reader was a nice touch. We decided to spend a week with each of us using one and alternating daily. But after 2 days, it happened. The Spin 713 3W went on sale at Best Buy down to $529. That was above our price cap, but for Open Box Excellent, which if you recall is basically a brand new device, I could get it for $434. Surprisingly, it actually arrived the next day, and after trying it out, I could tell that it was clearly a winner over the 2W. The build quality, while not quite to the level of the X360, was miles better than the 2020 version. That combined with the insane spec bump for only $30 more, and yeah, the 2W is now out of the running. Funny enough, we're now down to the 2 open box units that I bought. Both retail for $699, but I got them in the low 400s. So which did I choose? Well, I decided to keep the Acer Spin 713 3W. The others are all going back thanks to the extended holiday return period. If the X360 didn't have the dimmer or yellowish screen, and if the magnet was much weaker on it, then it would have been a closer call, and I think I may have actually leaned towards that rather than the Spin 713. But as things stand right now, the Acer Spin 713 is my winner as the best semi-premium Chromebook this holiday season. I can't speak for each of you, and everyone has their own taste, but for my needs and my preferences, those were the decisions I made and why I made them. Of the 4 models that I purchased to try out myself, that being the 2 Acers, the Asus CX5, and the HP X360, I have more detailed write-ups on Reddit. You can find those linked below. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them on those Reddit threads or in the comments down below, and I'll get back to you when I can. If you found this video helpful, please consider dropping it a like. I don't have any more Chromebook content planned at the moment, but we've got some woodworking stuff coming in the near future, and if you're into gaming content, make sure you check out our main channel. Thanks for watching everyone, and I will catch you next time.